Welcome back, you night owls. Tonight we plunge into the cold, clammy underbelly of a medieval dungeon, where the air is thick with despair and the walls seem to pulse with forgotten screams. Picture yourself teetering on the edge of a slick stone staircase, torchlight casting shadows that dance like spectres on the damp walls. You're about to descend, and they probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you tuning in from, and what's your local time? Drop it in the comments to join our nocturnal crew. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's dive into tonight's journey together. The prisoner stumbles, his bare feet slapping against the uneven stone as the iron door grinds shut above, its echo chasing him down the spiral staircase. His wrist burn, raw from the ropes that dragged him from the sunlit world into this forsaken pit. The air grows colder, heavier, with a sour tang of mould and something sharper. Fear, perhaps, baked into the walls over centuries. He's no noble, just a miller named Elias, accused of shorting a lord's sack of grain. His breath hitches as he trips, shoulder slamming into the wall, and a guard's rough laugh trails behind. "Keep moving, you dog!" Elias doesn't know it yet, but this dungeon, carved beneath the Lord's castle in 14th century Yorkshire, will be his world now, a place where time twists and hope frays like a worn thread. The staircase ends at a low archway, so low Elias must duck, his eyes straining against the flickering torchlight. The guard shoves him into a chamber that feels more like a stone beast's gullet than a room. The walls, historians note, were often hewn from local stone, quarried, in Yorkshire's case, from magnesian limestone, chosen for its unyielding strength to trap the condemned. Water seeps through, leaving glistening streaks, and a constant drip, drip, drip that'll soon burrow into Elias's skull. He squints, catching glimpses of shapes in the dark. Huddled figures, glints of iron, a rat skittering over straw so foul it's more sludge than bedding. A quirky tidbit. Some dungeons, like this one, had walls etched with prisoners' marks. Not just tallies, but crude prayers scratched with stolen nails, a faint act of defiance against oblivion. Elias's knees buckle, and he sinks into the straw, his hands fumbling over the floor, cold, slimy, pitted. He's not alone. A hoarse whisper from the shadows. "New meat, eh?" The voice belongs to a skeletal man, his face half-lit, eyes glinting with something between pity and madness. The others don't stir, they're either asleep, broken, or worse. Elias's stomach churns, already dreading the hunger that'll come, the cold that'll claw deeper each night. Historians still argue over whether such dungeons were common or exaggerated by later chroniclers. Were they hellish pits for the masses or reserved for high-profile traitors? Evidence leans toward the former here. Records from York's assize courts show even petty thieves like Elias could vanish into these holes, their fates unlogged. The guard lingers, his silhouette filling the archway, keys jangling like a cruel taunt. "Pray, if you've got prayers left," he sneers, then vanishes up the stairs, taking the light with him. Darkness crashes in, thick and suffocating. Elias curls tighter, his mind racing. How did it come to this? Yesterday he was kneading rye dough. Now he's a ghost in a numberless mass of the damned. A light joke to cut the gloom. If medieval Yelp existed, this dungeon would get 0 stars for ambience, but 5 for eternal dread. Elias breathes shallowly, ears straining. The drip, drip, drip persists, a heartbeat for this stone tomb. Somewhere a man coughs, low and wet, maybe sick, maybe dying. Elias shudders, pulling his knees to his chest. Time blurs already. Elias tries to mapping his cell by sound. The drip, the rustle of vermin rats, a faint moan from the distant corner. His fingers trace the floor, finding a notch. Another prisoner's mark, maybe a cross. It's a strange comfort. This proof someone else endured here, even if they're dust now. The cold seeps deeper, his thin tunic no match for it. He shivers, wondering how anyone lasts a week. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in rare accounts, claimed they befriended rats, not out of madness, but because the critters sometimes dragged crusts of bread from forgotten corners. Elias isn't there yet, but he's already eyeing that skittering shadow with less panic. The skeletal man speaks again, voice a dry rasp. Name's Torald, stealing sheep. You? Elias mutters his name, voice cracking, and Torald chuckles, a sound like breaking twigs. Grain? Ha! They'll flay you for less. Torald's words carry a grim truth. Medieval justice, per historical records, was brutal and uneven. Stealing food could land you here as surely as treason. Elias's mind spins, grasping for hope. Maybe the Lord will pardon him. Maybe his wife will plead his case. A second light joke. Too bad there's no medieval GoFundMe for dungeon bail. Elias could use a few shillings about now. The dungeon's weight presses harder. Elias's chest tightens, each breath pulling in damp rot. He shifts, straw jabbing his thighs, and finds a wall to lean against. Cold, but solid. His thoughts drift to the marketplace, the smell of fresh bread, his daughter's laugh. He clings to these, fragile as they are. Historians debate whether prisoners' mental resilience varied by class. Did peasants like Elias break faster than nobles? No clear answer, but Torald's bitter humour suggests he's clung to something. Maybe spite. Elias wonders if he'll find that strength, or if the dark will swallow it first. A faint clank above. Keys. Boots. Elias stiffens, heart hammering. Is it a new prisoner? A guard's patrol? The sound fades, leaving only the drip, drip, drip. He exhales, trembling. Torald mutters, "Get used to it, lad. They like to keep us guessing." Elias nods, though Torald can't see it. He's learning already. Fear is the dungeon's truest warden. A final light joke. If this place had a motto, it'd be checkout time, never. Elias closes his eyes, not to sleep but to escape the dark by choosing his own. The stone, the cold, the whispers, they're his world now, and he's only just arrived. Elias huddles against the wall, its damp chill seeping through his tunic like a thief stealing warmth. The dungeon's architecture, a merciless blend of function and cruelty, seems to mock him. The chamber stretches wider than he can see, its edges swallowed by shadow, but he feels its weight, stone upon stone, pressing down as if the castle above means to crush the forgotten below. The air is stagnant, heavy with the reek of mildew and unwashed bodies, and that relentless drip, drip, drip echoes from somewhere unseen, a reminder that even water here is a tormentor. Elias shifts, straw crackling beneath him, and tries to gauge the space. His fingers brush the wall's rough surface, pocked with scars from tools or time. This isn't just a cell. It's a machine built to break souls, and Elias is its latest cog. The walls, historians confirm, were often cut deep into the earth. Yorkshire's dungeons, like this one, carved into limestone bedrock to ensure no escape. Their thickness muffled screams, though Elias hasn't heard any yet, just low moans and Torald's occasional rasp. The ceiling looms low, forcing even a man of Elias's modest height to stoop when he stands. He doesn't dare now, his legs tremble, still weak from the descent. A quirky tidbit. Some medieval dungeons had floors sloped deliberately toward a central drain, not for hygiene, but to funnel waste to a single point, where it festered, breeding flies and despair. Elias smells it now, a sour tang beneath the mould, and gags quietly, pressing his sleeve to his face. Torald, the skeletal man, coughs, a wet, rattling sound that makes Elias flinch. "Don't mind the stink," Torald mutters, voice faint across the straw. "You'll stop noticing it by the third day, or you'll go mad." Elias doesn't reply, too busy mapping the dark with his ears. A faint scrabble, rats again, or maybe a prisoner shifting. The silence between sounds is worse, thick with the weight of waiting. He wonders how big this chamber is, how many share it. 10, 20. The dark hides numbers, makes them meaningless. Historians still argue whether such dungeons held dozens at once or just a handful. Records are spotty, but Yorkshire's assize rolls suggest overcrowding was common, especially during times of rebellion or famine. Elias's fingers trace the wall again, finding a seam where stones meet unevenly. He imagines digging, clawing his way out, but the thought is laughable. A light joke. If he had a spoon, he might tunnel out by next century, assuming the rats don't steal it first. The stone is unyielding, its cold sinking into his bones. He pulls his knees closer, trying to preserve what little heat he has. The dungeon's design, he's learning, isn't just about confinement. It's about stripping away everything human. No windows, no sky, no sense of day or night. Time itself feels like a prisoner here, chained to that drip, drip, drip. A clank from above startles him, metal on stone, distant but sharp. His heart lurches, expecting the guard's heavy boots. Nothing comes, just the echo fading into silence. Torald chuckles, a dry sound like crumbling leaves. False alarm, Miller. They do that. Keep us jumping. Elias exhales, shaky, and wonders how Torald's lasted long enough to sound so calm. The man's voice is a lifeline, thin as it is. Elias risks a whisper. How long you been here? Torald's pause is long, too long. Lost count, he says finally. Maybe a year, maybe 2. Elias's stomach twists. A year? He can't imagine a week. The dungeon's layout begins to take shape in his mind, pieced together from touch and sound. The chamber is roughly circular, he guesses, with walls curving inward like a clenched fist. The straw beneath him is thin, barely cushioning the stone, and he feels ridges, maybe grooves worn by countless feet or that grim central drain, a quirky tidbit. Some dungeons had oubliettes, narrow pits beneath trapdoors where the worst offenders were dropped and forgotten, French for to forget, a word Elias doesn't know but would feel in his bones if he did. This chamber doesn't seem to have one, or he'd have fallen in by now, but the thought makes him edge closer to the wall. Movement nearby, a shuffle, a low groan. Another prisoner, maybe waking, maybe dreaming. Elias strains to see, but the dark is absolute, broken only by the faint glow when a guard passes above with a torch. He wonders about the others. Thieves like Torald, or worse, traitors, heretics. The dungeon doesn't care. It swallows all the same. Historical accounts note that medieval dungeons often mixed prisoners, petty criminals beside political prisoners, men beside women, the guilty beside the falsely accused. Elias shudders, imagining who shares this dark with him. A second light joke. If this place had a guest book, it'd be full of 1-star reviews, all scribbled in desperation. The cold bites harder now, and Elias's teeth chatter. He wraps his arms tighter, but it's no use. The stone leaches warmth faster than he can generate it. His mind drifts to his mill, the creak of the water wheel, the dust of flour on his hands. It feels like another life, one the dungeon means to erase. He presses his back to the wall, finding a strange comfort in its solidity even as it chills him. Torald's voice cuts through again. Sleep if you can, Miller. Saves your strength. Sleep. Here. Elias almost laughs, but the effort dies in his throat. Instead, he closes his eyes, not expecting rest, just a moment's escape from the dark. A new sound, a faint scratching, not rats, but deliberate. Elias freezes, listening. It's coming from the wall, a few feet away. Another prisoner? Or something worse? He holds his breath, heart pounding. The scratching stops, then starts again, slower, like a nail on stone. Historians debate whether prisoners' carvings, those prayers and tallies Elias found, were acts of hope or madness. Maybe both. He wonders if this scratcher is marking days, or just fighting to be remembered. He doesn't dare call out, not yet. The dungeon's taught him caution already. The air shifts, a faint draft carrying a sharper stench. Waste, unmistakable now. Elias gags again, burying his face in his sleeve. The drain he's sure is close. He shuffles sideways, straw sticking to his legs, trying to distance himself from the smell. It's futile. The dungeon's filth is everywhere. A living thing that clings to skin and soul. A final light joke. If cleanliness is next to godliness, this place is the devil's own penthouse. Elias leans back, exhausted, though he's done nothing but sit and shiver. The stone, the dark, the drip, drip, drip. They're carving him already, shaping him into something less than he was. Torald's silent now, maybe sleeping, maybe lost in his own memories. Elias envies him that quiet, even as he dreads what tomorrow, or whatever passes for tomorrow, will bring. Elias's wrists ache, the rough hemp ropes long gone, but their bite lingering in raw red welts. Now, iron shackles clamp his ankles, cold and heavy, chaining him to a rusted ring bolted into the stone floor. The links clank softly as he shifts, each movement a reminder of his captivity. The dungeon's darkness presses closer, its silence broken only by that ceaseless drip, drip, drip and the occasional rustle of straw. Elias tugs at the chains, testing their give. There is none. The iron bites his skin, and he winces, the sound swallowed by the vast, uncaring chamber. These shackles, he's learning, aren't just restraints. They're the dungeon's way of whispering, "You belong to me now." His breath catches, a mix of fear and defiance, as he tries to sit straighter, straw jabbing his thighs through his threadbare tunic. Shackles, historians note, were a staple of medieval dungeons, often forged from local iron and designed for durability over comfort. Yorkshire's blacksmiths were particularly skilled at crafting these unforgiving bonds. Elias's chains are short, allowing him to shuffle a few feet but no more, anchoring him to this patch of filthy stone. The ring in the floor, pitted with rust, feels ancient, as if it's held 100 others before him. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in rare accounts, claimed their shackles were personalised, with extra weight for notorious offenders, a cruel flourish by jailers who saw restraint as an art form. Elias is a standard, but their weight drags at his spirit all the same, each clank a tolling bell. Torald's voice drifts from the shadows, low and cracked. "Stop fiddling, Miller. Chains don't break." Elias freezes, embarrassed, though the dark hides his flush. "How do you stand it?" he whispers, voice hoarse. Torald chuckles, a sound like dry reeds. "You don't. You just exist." Elias clenches his fists, the words sinking in. Existing? Is that all he has left? He leans back, the wall's damp chill seeping into his spine, and tries to imagine his mill, the river's hum. But the chains clank, pulling him back to this moment, this stone, this dark. A light joke. If he could trade these shackles for a loaf of his own rye bread, he'd be out of here by supper. Well, maybe not, but a man can dream. The air grows heavier, thick with the stench of rot and that central drain's sour reek. Elias's stomach twists, hunger gnawing already, though it's been, what, a day? Time blurs here, the dark erasing hours. He shifts again, chains scraping, and feels the straw beneath him, damp and clumped. Another prisoner coughs nearby, a wet hacking sound that makes Elias's skin crawl. Is it sickness? Weakness? He doesn't ask. The dungeon teaches silence, a lesson he's learning fast. Historians still argue over whether shackles were used universally or reserved for flight risks. Some suggest only violent prisoners or those awaiting trial wore them, but Yorkshire's records show even petty thieves like Elias were often chained, perhaps to break their will. A faint clatter above, keys maybe, or a guard's boot. Elias stiffens, heart thudding. The sound fades, but his pulse doesn't slow. Torald mutters, "They're toying with us again. Bastards." Elias nods, though no one sees, and wonders how many false alarms he'll endure before he stops reacting. The shackles bite harder as he moves, the iron unyielding. He runs his fingers over them, feeling the rough edges, the rust flaking under his touch. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in desperate moments, try to lubricate their shackles with their own blood to slip free, a gruesome tactic that rarely worked. Elias shudders at the thought, his hands dropping to the straw. The other prisoners stir now, their chains clinking like a grim chorus. A woman's voice, faint and trembling, murmurs a prayer. Latin, maybe, though Elias doesn't know the words. It's a sound both comforting and alien, a reminder of a world beyond these walls. He wonders who she is, a thief, a debtor, a heretic. The dungeon doesn't distinguish, its chains equalizing all. He pulls at his own, the metal grinding against the floor's ring, and feels a spark of anger. Why him? A sack of grain, a lord's whim, and now this. A second light joke. If he'd known milling was this risky, he'd have stuck to herding sheep. Less flour, fewer felonies. The cold deepens, creeping into Elias's bones. He curls tighter, trying to trap warmth, but the shackles make every position awkward, the iron pressing against his shins. He thinks of his daughter, her small hands tugging his sleeve, and his chest aches. Will she know where he is? Will his wife fight for him? The thoughts are sharp, cutting through the fog of fear. Torald's voice breaks in again. Thinking of a home, Miller? Elias startles. unnerved by the man's knack for reading silence. "Aye," he admits, voice barely a whisper. "Don't," Torald says, softer now. "It'll eat you alive." Elias swallows, the truth of it stinging. A new sound, a low rhythmic scratching like before but closer. Elias tilts his head, listening. It's not rats, not this time. Someone's carving, maybe marking days or a name. He strains to hear, but the sound stops, replaced by a faint sob. His heart twists. He wants to call out, to offer something, comfort, a name, but fear seals his lips. The dungeon's chains aren't just iron, they're fear, isolation, the slow erosion of hope. Historical accounts suggest prisoners often formed fragile bonds, sharing whispers to stay sane, but Elias isn't there yet. He's too new, too raw. The air shifts, a faint draught carrying the drain stench again. Elias gags, pressing his sleeve to his nose, but it's no use. The smell is part of him now, like the chains. He shuffles, trying to find a spot where the straw is less damp, but every inch is foul. A third light joke. If he ever gets out, he's pitching this place as the worst bed and breakfast in Yorkshire. 0 stars, but plenty of character. He almost smiles, then catches himself. Smiling feels wrong here, a betrayal of the dark. Torald's silent now, maybe sleeping, maybe lost in his own chains. Elias closes his eyes, not for rest, but to shut out the nothing he can't see. The shackles clank softly, a lullaby of despair as he waits for whatever comes next. Elias's chains clank softly as he shifts, the iron a constant weight on his ankles, tethering him to the dungeon's unyielding stone. The darkness is total now, broken only by the faint, irregular flicker of a torch somewhere above, its light too weak to reach the chamber's depths. A new sound cuts through the drip, drip, drip and the rustle of vermin, a heavy tread, deliberate and slow, descending the spiral staircase. Elias's heart stumbles, his breath catching as the boots grow louder, each step a hammer on his nerves. The keeper is coming, the jailer whose whims, he's heard, hold sway over life and death in this pit. Elias presses himself against the wall, straw sticking to his sweat-damp tunic, and waits, the cold stone biting his spine. The dungeon's cruelty, he's learning, isn't just in its chains or its dark. It's in the men who rule it. The boots stop at the archway, and a silhouette fills the gap, broad and hulking, a torch in one hand casting jagged shadows. The keeper's face is half hidden, his eyes glinting like wet flint as he surveys the chamber. His voice, when it comes, is a low growl, thick with ale and menace. "On your feet, scum!" Elias scrambles to obey, chains dragging but his legs wobble, weak from cold and hunger. Others stir, their shackles clinking, some too slow or too broken to rise. The keeper steps forward, his boots squelching in the straw, and Elias smells him now. Sweat, leather, and something sour, like curdled milk. Historical records confirm that dungeon keepers, often low-ranking men in castle hierarchies, wielded near absolute power over prisoners, their cruelty unchecked by distant lords. Yorkshire's jails were notorious for such tyrants. The keeper's torch sweeps the room, its light cruelly brief, revealing gaunt faces, matted hair, and eyes that flinch from the glare. Elias catches a glimpse of Torald, his skeletal frame hunched, staring at the floor. The keeper pauses, his gaze lingering on a woman in the corner. Her prayer from earlier still echoes in Elias's mind. "You?" the keeper barks, pointing a gloved hand. "Sing that hymn again or I'll have your tongue." She trembles, voice cracking as she murmurs Latin, the words faltering under his stare. He laughs, a sound like gravel, and moves on, satisfied. A quirky tidbit. Some jailers, in rare accounts, kept favourites among prisoners, sparing them small mercies for amusement or obedience, though mercy here is a twisted thing, more taunt than kindness. Elias's pulse races as the keeper's boots near. He keeps his head down, praying to be ignored, but the man stops, his shadow swallowing Elias whole. "New one, eh?" the keeper mutters, nudging Elias's leg with his boot. The touch is light, but it sends a jolt of fear through him. "Miller, they say, short in grain." Elias nods, barely, his throat too dry to speak. The keeper snorts. "Lord's got a long memory for cheats." He leans closer, torchlight catching the scar across his cheek, and Elias smells that sour breath again. "You'll learn to love me, Miller, or you'll wish you had." A light joke. If this is love, Elias would rather court a rabid dog. At least dogs don't carry keys. The keeper straightens, moving on, but his presence lingers, a weight heavier than the chains. Elias exhales, trembling, and sinks back against the wall. Torald's voice, barely a whisper, cuts through. "That's Gunther! Pray he forgets your face." Elias nods, though the dark hides it, and wonders how anyone forgets anything here, where every moment carves itself into you. The keeper's cruelty isn't just in his threats. It's in the waiting, the not knowing when he'll strike or spare. Historians still argue over whether such jailers acted on orders or indulged personal sadism. Some suggest men like Gunther were chosen for their brutality, a deliberate tool to break prisoners before trial. Gunther's torch pauses at another prisoner, a man so still Elias thought him dead. "Up, you!" Gunther snaps, kicking the man's ribs. The prisoner groans, curling tighter, and Gunther laughs again, kicking harder. Elias winces, his own ribs aching in sympathy, but he stays silent. Speaking up, he senses, would only draw those flinty eyes back to him. The woman's prayer falters, then stops, and the chamber falls quiet save for the man's laboured breathing and Gunther's boots. A quirky tidbit. Some jailers, in grim jest, tossed bones or crusts into the straw, watching prisoners scramble like dogs. A game Gunther hasn't played yet, but Elias dreads its coming. The keeper's circuit ends at the archway where he lingers, torchlight framing him like a demon at Hell's Gate. "Sleep tight," he sneers, the words dripping with mockery. "Tomorrow's a busy day." He turns, boots fading up the stairs, and the dark crashes back, thicker for the torch's absence. Elias's chest tightens, his mind racing. What does tomorrow mean? Feeding? Torture? Trial? Torald's rasp answers his unspoken question. "Don't think on it, Miller." Thinking's poison. Elias wants to argue, to cling to planning, but the dungeon's teaching him Torald's truth. Hope is a blade that cuts both ways. A faint shuffle nearby. A prisoner moving, chains scraping. Elias listens, straining to place it. The woman's voice doesn't return, her silence louder than her prayers. He wonders if Gunther's threat broke her, or if she's saving her strength. His own strength feels thin, a thread fraying under the keeper's shadow. Second light joke. If Gunther's the welcome committee, Elias is ready to check out. Too bad the dungeon doesn't take refunds. He shifts, chains clanking, and feels the straw's dampness seeping through his tunic. The cold is deeper now, a living thing that gnaws his bones. The drip, drip, drip resumes its rhythm, a cruel metronome. Elias closes his eyes, not for sleep, but to shut out the nothing. His mind drifts to his mill, the water wheels creak, but Gunther's scar and that gravel laugh keep intruding. He wonders how long Torald's endured this keeper, how many tomorrows he's survived. Historical accounts suggest jailers like Gunther often extorted prisoners' families, demanding bribes for food or leniency. Elias's wife has nothing to offer, their savings barely a handful of pennies. The thought stings, sharper than the chains. A new sound, a low moan, not pain but exhaustion from the man Gunther kicked. Elias's heart twists, but he doesn't move. Helping, he's learning, is a risk he can't afford. Not yet. The dungeon's cruelty isn't just Gunther's boots or the iron. It's the way it pits prisoner against prisoner, each too broken to lift another. A third light joke. If this place had a motto, it'd be, "Misery loves company and charges rent." Elias leans back. The walls chill a faint anchor, and tries to breathe slower to mimic Torald's calm. The keeper's gone, but his threat lingers, a shadow longer than the dark itself, as Elias waits for the next clank of boots. Elias's stomach growls, a sharp pang that cuts through the dungeon's oppressive quiet, louder than the drip, drip, drip or the faint clink of his chains. Hunger is no longer a whisper but a beast, clawing at his insides, making his head swim with each shallow breath. The straw beneath him is damp, its sour stench mixing with the ever-present reek of the central drain. But now another smell creeps in, something faintly yeasty, almost edible, carried on a draught from above. His mouth waters, though his throat is dry as dust, and he strains to hear the telltale boots of Gunther or another guard. Food, if it comes, is their domain, a gift or a taunt at their whim. Elias leans forward, chains scraping, his fingers digging into the straw as if it might hide a forgotten crust. The dungeon, he's learning, doesn't just starve the body, it starves hope, dangling survival just out of reach. A clatter echoes down the staircase, metal on stone, and Elias's heart leaps. Boots follow, heavy and uneven, accompanied by a low curse. Gunther's voice, unmistakable in its gravelly scorn. "Move, you lazy cur," he snaps, not to the prisoners but to someone else. A younger voice, muttering apologies. Torchlight flickers, growing brighter, and Elias squints as the keeper lumbers through the archway, a sack slung over his shoulder. Behind him, a scrawny boy, no older than 15, carries a dented pail, his face pale and pinched. Historical records note that dungeon meals, when provided, were often meagre, gruel or stale bread, doled out irregularly to keep prisoners weak but alive for trial or labour. Yorkshire's jails, like this one, were known for their pittance, a term for the barer scraps given to the condemned. Gunther drops the sack with a thud, straw puffing around it, and kicks it open. "Feeding time, dogs," he sneers, his torch casting long shadows that dance across the chamber. The boy sets the pail down, its contents sloshing, a watery sludge that smells of mouldy barley and something rancid, like grease gone bad. Elias's stomach twists, hunger warring with revulsion. The prisoners stir, chains clinking, their eyes glinting in the torchlight like starved wolves. Torald, hunched nearby, mutters, "Don't rush, Miller. It's a trap." Elias frowns, confused, but stays still, watching as a burly man lunges for the sack, only to catch Gunther's boot in his chest. The man crumples, gasping, and Gunther laughs. "Patience, filth!" A light joke. If this is fine dining, Elias would rather fast, though his stomach's begging for a seat at the table. The boy scoops gruel into chipped wooden bowls, his hands trembling as he passes them to Gunther, who tosses them into the straw like bones to hounds. Elias waits, heart pounding, until a bowl lands near him, its contents spilling into the filth. He scrambles for it, chains dragging, and clutches the bowl, its wood slimy under his fingers. The gruel is cold, lumpy, with bits of something unidentifiable floating in it. Husks, maybe, or worse. A quirky tidbit. Some medieval prisoners reported finding extras in their meals. Rat bones, weevils, even bits of straw, as if the kitchen mocked their plight. Elias hesitates, then scoops a fingerful, gagging at the taste. Bitter, sour, like despair boiled down. He forces it down, hunger winning over pride. Torald's bowl sits untouched, his skeletal hands resting on his knees. "Eat slow," he rasps, "or it'll come back up." Elias nods, pacing himself, though every fibre screams to devour it. The woman from before, the one who prayed, reaches for her bowl, but Gunther steps on her hand, grinding his heel. "Sing first," he growls. Her voice trembles, a faint hymn rising, and he relents, kicking the bowl toward her. Elias's chest tightens. Cruelty here is a currency, spent freely. Historians still argue over whether such meagre rations were deliberate torture or mere neglect. Some suggest lords skimped to save coin, others that starvation softened prisoners for interrogation. Yorkshire's assize rolls hint at the former, with budgets for jails barely covering mouldy grain. The burly man, recovered now, tears into a hunk of bread from the sack, his chains rattling. Others crawl forward, fighting for scraps, their desperation a grim ballet in the torchlight. Elias watches, clutching his bowl, and notices the boy's eyes. Wide, darting, as if he fears the prisoners as much as Gunther. A second light joke. If this kid's the sous chef, Elias is sending his compliments back to the kitchen, preferably with a catapult. He sips more gruel, each swallow a battle, and feels a faint warmth in his belly, though it's more illusion than nourishment. The bread he sees is speckled with green, its crust hard as stone. He reaches for a piece, but Gunther's glare stops him cold. The keeper paces, torch in hand, his scar catching the light as he watches the prisoners eat. "Savour it," he mocks. "Might be your last." The words land like stones, and Elias's throat tightens. Is it a taunt or truth? He doesn't ask, just eats, the gruel coating his tongue like ash. Torald finally takes his bowl, sipping with a calm Elias envies. "How do you do it?" Elias whispers, voice low. Torald shrugs, a faint smile cracking his lips. Pretend it's ale. The lie is kind, and Elias clings to it, imagining a tavern's warmth, a mug in his hands. But the chains clank, pulling him back to the straw, the dark, the filth. A new sound, a low crunch, not straw, but something breaking. Elias peers into the gloom and sees the burly man spitting, a tooth in his palm broken on the bread's crust. Gunter roars with laughter, the sound echoing off the walls. "Need a softer loaf, eh?" he taunts, tossing another piece at the man's feet. Elias shudders, his own bread uneaten, and wonders how many teeth this dungeon's claimed. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in desperation, ground their bread against the stone to soften it, a trick that often mixed grit into the meal, wearing teeth down faster. Elias decides to soak his in the gruel, hoping for less damage. The boy gathers the bowls, his movements quick, avoiding eyes. Elias hands his over, their fingers brushing. Warm, alive, a shock in this cold place. The boy flinches, scurrying back to Gunter, who slaps his head for slowness. The prisoners fall silent, their brief frenzy over, the chamber settling back into its grim rhythm. Elias's stomach churns, the gruel sitting heavy, and he wonders if Torald's right. Will it stay down? A third light joke. If this meal's a preview, Elias is skipping the dungeon's dessert menu, unless it's freedom, served hot. He leans back, the walls chill, grounding him, and listens to the drip, 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 the only constant in this hell. Gunter lingers, torchlight fading as he heads for the stairs, the boy trailing like a whipped pup. "Sleep well, dogs," he calls, his voice fading with his boots. The dark returns, thicker now, and Elias curls tighter, chains heavy on his ankles. The gruel's faint warmth is gone, replaced by a gnawing ache, hunger sated but not satisfied. He thinks of his wife's stew, carrots and mutton, and his chest aches. Torald's voice, softer now, cuts through. "Don't dream of food, Miller. It'll break you." Elias nods, unseen, and closes his eyes. The dungeon's filth and fear his only companions as he waits for the next cruel dawn. Elias clutches the empty bowl, its slimy wood a faint anchor, as the dungeon's darkness settles back, heavier after Gunter's departure. The drip, drip, drip pulses on, a cruel rhythm, but now a softer sound weaves through it. Whispers, faint and cautious, rising from the straw like mist. The prisoners, stirred by the meal's brief chaos, begin to speak, their voices low, as if testing the dark's patience. Elias leans forward, chains clinking, his ears straining to catch the words. These murmurs, he senses, are more than idle talk. They're a fragile defiance, a way to claw back something human from the dungeon's grip. His breath slows, the hunger's edge dulled by the gruel, and he listens, the cold stone at his back a steadying chill. Torald's rasp comes first, close enough to feel like a secret. "Heard that hymn, Miller?" he mutters, his voice dry as the straw. Elias nods, though unseen, thinking of the woman's trembling Latin. "Aye," he whispers. "Who is she?" Torald pauses, the silence thick, then says, "Marjorie." Says she's a weaver, accused of witchcraft. Elias's stomach twists, not at the charge, common enough in Yorkshire's superstitious hamlets, but at the weight of her voice, fragile yet unbroken. The whispers grow, a low hum across the chamber, and Elias catches fragments. A man's gruff tale of a stolen horse, a younger voice recounting a market brawl. Historical records confirm that medieval prisoners often shared stories, not just for comfort, but to preserve identity. Yorkshire's jails, like this one, were melting pots of tales, from petty crimes to whispered rebellions. A new voice joins, sharp and bitter, from the chamber's far side. "I was a tanner," the man says, his words punctuated by a wet cough. "Sold a bad hide," they said. "Now I'm here, rotting with you lot." A faint chuckle ripples through the dark, not joyful but defiant, and Elias feels a spark of warmth. These stories, raw and jagged, are their currency, traded to keep the dungeon's silence at bay. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in rare accounts, spun elaborate lies, claiming to be knights or lost heirs, to earn respect or a scrap of bread from their fellows. Elias wonders if the tanner's tale is true, but it doesn't matter. The act of telling it is a small victory. Torald shifts, his chains scraping, and leans closer. "Your turn, Miller. What's your story?" Elias freezes, his throat tight. He's no bard, no weaver of tales, just a man who ground grain until a lord's whim landed him here. "Not much to tell," he mutters, but Torald snorts. "Everyone's got something. Speak or the dark'll eat you." Elias hesitates, then begins, his voice halting. "I'm Elias, miller by the river. They say I shorted a sack of grain for Lord Ranulf." He pauses, the words bitter. "I didn't, but here I am." The confession feels like shedding a weight, though the chains remind him nothing's changed. A light joke. If he'd known milling came with such drama, he'd have stuck to fishing. At least fish don't snitch. The whispers shift, others picking up the thread. Marjorie's voice, soft but clear, rises again. Not a hymn, but a story. "I wove cloth for the village," she says, each word measured, as if she's stitching it into the dark. "A widow cursed me when her babe died, called me a witch." The chamber quiets, her tale a mirror to their own, misfortune, blame, and this pit. Elias's chest aches, picturing her hands calloused from looms, now shackled like his. Historians still argue over whether such accusations were rooted in fear or greed. Some suggest witchcraft charges, common in 14th century Yorkshire, masked land grabs or settled scores. Marjorie's story feels personal, a wound shared to bind them, if only for a moment. A younger voice pipes up, trembling but eager. "I'm what? Stole a goose from the abbey." A low laugh spreads, and Torald mutters, "Bold lad." Abbots don't forgive. Wat's tale spins on, a chase through muddy lanes, a goose squawking under his arm, until Gunter's distant boots echo above, silencing him mid-sentence. The whispers die, the prisoners sinking back into the straw, but the stories linger, a faint glow in Elias's mind. He clings to them, to Wat's goose, Marjorie's loom, the tanner's hides. A quirky tidbit. Some dungeons, like this one, became oral archives, with prisoners passing tales through generations of captives, their words outlasting their chains. Elias shifts, the straw jabbing his thighs, and risks another whisper. "Torald, what's yours? You said sheep?" Torald's pause is long, his breath a faint wheeze. "Aye, sheep. Stole 3 from a manor. Thought I'd sell 'em, feed my kids." His voice cracks, not from thirst but memory, and Elias regrets asking. "They caught me at market," Torald adds, quieter. "Kids are with their gran now, or so I hope." The words hang heavy as the damp air, and Elias feels the dungeon's true cruelty. Not just the hunger or the cold, but the severance of lives left behind. A second light joke. If Torald's sheep had been quieter, maybe they'd both be eating mutton stew instead of gruel. Dreams are cheap, at least. The drip, drip, drip resumes its reign, but the whispers don't fully fade. A low hum, almost a chant, starts near Marjorie. Latin again, but softer, less prayer than lullaby. Others join, not with words but murmurs, a chorus of survival. Elias listens, his chains heavy but his heart lighter, if only a fraction. These voices, cracked and weary, are a lifeline, threading through the dark like Marjorie's cloth. Historical accounts suggest such bonds, fragile as they were, could mean the difference between madness and endurance. Yorkshire's prisoners, in rare letters smuggled out, wrote of brothers in the deep, their tales a shield against despair. A new sound, a faint scratching, like before, but rhythmic, deliberate. Elias tilts his head, pinpointing it near the tanner's spot. Is he carving a mark, a tally, a name? The sound stops, replaced by a cough, and Elias wonders what story that scratch tells. He wants to ask, to keep the whispers flowing, but fear holds him back. Gunter's boots could return, or worse, silence could win. Instead, he leans back, the walls chill grounding him, and lets the murmurs wash over. Wat's voice rises again, barely audible, finishing his goose tale with a whispered, "Feathers everywhere." A faint chuckle spreads, and Elias's lips twitch, a ghost of a smile. The cold deepens, seeping into Elias's bones, but the stories keep it at bay, if only for now. He thinks of his mill, the river's hum, his daughter's laugh, and risks weaving his own tale in his mind. Not for the others, but for himself. He pictures telling her this, years from now, by a fire, the dungeon a memory. The thought is fragile, a candle in a storm, but he guards it. A third light joke. If he ever gets out, he's writing a saga about what's goose, epic poetry with extra feathers for flair. The whispers fade, the chamber settling, but their echo lingers, a faint pulse in the dark. Elias closes his eyes, chains heavy, and listens. The dungeon's silence no longer absolute as he waits for the next voice to rise. The whispers fade, leaving only the drip, drip, drip and the faint clink of chains as Elias shifts against the cold stone wall. The stories, what's goose, Marjorie's loom, Thorold's sheep, linger in his mind, fragile threads binding the prisoners in this lightless pit. But the dungeon's weight returns, its darkness a living thing that presses against his chest, making each breath feel stolen. Elias's fingers trace the shackles on his ankles, their iron unyielding, and he wonders who else shares this misery. Beyond the voices he's heard, who else rots here, forgotten by the world above? The chamber feels vast yet suffocating, a paradox of space and confinement where all are equal in their suffering, noble or peasant, guilty or not. Elias's heart aches for his mill, but the thought of home is a blade, sharp and useless in the dark. A new sound breaks the quiet, a low groan, not from pain but exhaustion, from a corner Elias hasn't mapped. He tilts his head, listening, and catches a faint rustle, then a voice reedy and cracked. "God's bones, my back," it mutters, the words carrying a faint accent. French, perhaps, or the polished clip of someone once high-born. Elias strains to see, but the dark hides all but shadows. Thorold, ever the dungeon cynic, rusts nearby. "That's Sir Hugh!" Claims he's a knight, been here longer than me. Elias's eyes widen, though unseen. A knight? Here, with thieves and weavers? The dungeon, he's learning, is a great leveller, its chains blind to rank or title. Historical records confirm this grim equality. Medieval dungeons like Yorkshire's often housed a mix of classes, from disgraced nobles to commoners, their fates tangled in the same stone and straw. The reedy voice speaks again, softer now, as if to itself. "I rode with the king's men once. Now this." A bitter laugh follows, cut short by a cough. Elias's chest tightens, picturing a man in tarnished armour reduced to a shadow in the straw. Marjorie's voice, faint but steady, joins in. "Titles don't matter here, sir. We're all dust to them." Her words are gentle, not cruel, a reminder of their shared fate. The knight, Sir Hugh, if Thorold's right, falls silent, his groan replaced by the faint scrape of chains. Elias wonders what landed him here. Treason, debt, or a lord's grudge. A quirky tidbit. Some nobles, in rare accounts, were chained with lighter irons as a nod to their status. A hollow courtesy in places like this where filth and hunger mocked all privilege. Thorold shifts, his breath a dry wheeze. "Don't gawk, Miller. He's no different now, just hungrier." Elias nods, though the dark swallows it, and feels a pang of pity. Sir Hugh's tale, even half heard, stirs something in him, a sense that no one escapes the dungeon's grind, not even those who once held swords or seals. He leans back, the walls chill seeping deeper, and listens as the whispers stir again. "What?" the goose thief murmurs. "Heard he crossed a baron. Bad move." The words are hushed, but they carry a weight, a warning. Elias's mind spins. His own crime, a shorted sack of grain, feels small beside such stakes, yet here they are, side by side in the dark. The air grows heavier, the drain stench sharper now, and Elias's stomach churns, the gruel's faint warmth long gone. A faint clank above, keys, boots, makes him stiffen, but it's distant, not Gunther's heavy tread. The prisoner's quiet, waiting, then relax as the sound fades. Historians still argue over whether dungeons deliberately mix classes to humiliate nobles, or simply out of neglect. Yorkshire's assize rolls suggest overcrowding forced the issue, with cells packed regardless of rank. Elias imagines Sir Hugh's fall, from horseback to this pit, and wonders if his own fall, a miller's simple life, hurts less or more. A light joke. If this dungeon's a social club, it's got the worst membership perks. Chains, filth, and no way out. A new voice, gruff and low, cuts through from another corner. "I'm no knight," it says bitter, "just a cooper. Barrel broke, spilt a lord's ale, here I rot." The cooper's words spark a murmur, others nodding in the dark. Elias can't see it, but he feels it, a shared thread of injustice. Marjorie whispers, "They take what they want, our lives, our names." Her voice is a needle, stitching their stories tighter. Elias risks speaking, his voice raw. "Elias, Miller. They said I cheated Lord Ranulph." The confession feels lighter now, shared with this ragtag court of the condemned. Torald chuckles, a dry crackle. "Welcome to the guild, Miller. We're all cheats here, according to them." The chamber hums with low voices, each prisoner adding a fragment. A baker accused of short loaves, a widow blamed for a neighbour's curse, a boy caught poaching rabbits. Elias listens, the tales weaving a tapestry of loss and defiance. A quirky tidbit. Some dungeons, like this one, saw prisoners create crude hierarchies, with longer-serving inmates like Torald or Sir Hugh holding sway, their stories earning a kind of grim respect. Elias feels it now, Torald's rasp a quiet authority, Sir Hugh's silence a heavy presence. He wonders if he'll earn a place in this strange fellowship, or if the dungeon will swallow him first. A faint scratching starts again, near the cooper's spot, rhythmic like a prayer. Elias tilts his head, listening. Is it a tally, a name, a plea? The sound stops, replaced by a low sob, quickly stifled. His heart twists, but he doesn't call out. The dungeons taught him caution, even in shared suffering. Instead, he leans closer to Torald, whispering, "Does Sir Hugh ever talk?" Torald's pause is long, his chains clinking softly. Sometimes, when the dark gets too heavy. Elias nods, understanding. The stories are a shield, but even shields crack. A second light joke. If Sir Hugh's a knight, his armour's probably rusted by now, though in this place, rust is a personality trait. The cold bites deeper. Elias's tunic no match for it, and he curls tighter, chains dragging. The whispers fade, the prisoners settling, but their stories linger, a faint pulse against the drip, drip, drip. Elias thinks of his daughter, her small hands, and imagines telling her this. Not the dungeon, but the voices, the cooper, the night. It's a fragile hope, but he clings to it. The straw jabbing his thighs a reminder of where he is. Historical accounts note that such bonds, however fleeting, could sustain prisoners. Yorkshire's jails in rare survivor tales spoke of kin in chains, their shared stories a lifeline through despair. A new sound, a faint hum, not Marjorie's Latin, but a melody, wordless and soft from Sir Hugh's corner. It's no knight's ballad, just a thread of sound, fragile as a spider's web. Others join, a low drone, not song but survival. Elias listens, his breath slowing, and feels the dungeon's grip loosen, just a fraction. A third light joke. If this is the dungeon choir, they're not winning any prizes, but for now, it's music enough. He closes his eyes, the chains heavy, the stone cold, but the voices a faint warmth, holding back the dark as he waits for whatever comes next. Elias huddles against the stone, the cold seeping deeper, his chains a heavy reminder of the dungeon's grip. The faint hum from Sir Hugh's corner has faded, leaving only the drip, drip, drip and the occasional cough, sharp and wet from somewhere in the dark. That cough, persistent, ragged, gnaws at Elias's nerves, each hack a warning of something creeping through the chamber, unseen but deadly. The air feels thicker now, not just with the stench of the drain or the mouldy straw, but with something heavier, a cloying dampness that clings to his lungs. He breathes shallowly, his chest tight, and wonders if the dungeon's not just a prison but a tomb, its sickness stalking them as surely as Gunther's boots. The voices, Torald, Marjorie, Wat, have quieted, their stories spent, and Elias feels the silence press harder, as if disease itself whispers in the shadows. The cough comes again, closer now from the cooper's spot. It's not just exhaustion, it's deep, phlegmy, a sound that makes Elias's skin crawl. He shifts, chains clinking, and presses his sleeve to his nose, though it does little against the air's foulness. Historical records confirm that medieval dungeons were breeding grounds for disease. Yorkshire's jails, like this one, were notorious for jail fever, a term for the typhus that thrived in filth and overcrowding, claiming lives before trials could. Elias doesn't know the name, but he feels its threat, the way the damp seems to carry it, settling into his bones alongside the cold. His fingers tremble as he pulls his tunic tighter, a futile shield against what he can't see. Torald's rasp breaks the quiet, low and cautious. "That's the Cooper. Been coughing for days." Elias swallows, his throat dry. "Is it bad?" Torald's pause is long, his breath a faint wheeze. "Bad enough. Don't get close." Elias nods, unseen, and edges farther from the sound, though the chains limit his escape. The Cooper's cough sputters again, followed by a low moan, and Elias's heart twists. He imagines the man's face, gaunt like Torald's, now fever-flushed, his strength leaching into the straw. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in desperate folklore, believed rubbing mould from the walls on their skin could ward off sickness. A grim hope, more likely to poison than protect. Elias eyes the glistening streaks on the stone and shudders, keeping his hands to himself. The air shifts, a faint draught carrying the drained stench, sharper now, mixed with something acrid, like sweat gone sour. Elias gags, his stomach lurching, the gruel's faint memory no comfort. Another cough, this time from a different corner. What, maybe? Or the widow who spoke of curses. The sound spreads, a grim chorus, and Elias's pulse quickens. Is it spreading? He presses harder against the wall, its chill a strange anchor, and tries to slow his breathing. Historians still argue over how many died in dungeons from disease versus starvation. Some estimate half of Yorkshire's prisoners never saw trial, their bodies carted out in dawn silence. Elias doesn't know the numbers, but he feels the truth in the Cooper's ragged breaths, each one a countdown. A faint rustle nearby, Marjorie her chains scraping as she shifts. "Pray for him," she whispers, her voice soft but firm, the weaver's calm a contrast to the rising panic in Elias's chest. "Prayer don't cure fever," Torald mutters, but there's no bite in it, just weariness. Marjorie hums, a fragment of her Latin hymn, and Elias clings to it, a thread of light in the dark. He wants to pray, to beg for his own survival, but the words stick, lost in fear. A light joke. If prayer worked on jail fever, this place would be a cathedral, though the rats might demand pews. The thought almost makes him smile, but the cough cuts through again, stealing even that small defiance. A new sound, boots heavy and deliberate descending the staircase. Elias stiffens, expecting Gunter, but the tread is lighter, the rhythm uneven. Torchlight flickers, weak but growing, and a figure appears. Not the keeper, but the scrawny boy from the feeding, his pail replaced by a bundle of rags. His eyes dart, wide with fear, as he steps into the chamber, avoiding the prisoner's gazes. "Water," he mumbles, tossing the rags into the straw. Elias scrambles, chains dragging, and snatches one. A damp cloth, barely cleaner than the floor, but he presses it to his lips, sucking the faint moisture. The boy hesitates, then kneels near the Cooper, offering a cloth. The man's cough is weaker now, his hand too slow to take it. The boy flinches, retreating fast, and Elias's heart sinks. The boy knows something's wrong. The torchlight fades as the boy hurries back to the stairs, his footsteps swallowed by the dark. Elias clutches the rag, its dampness a fleeting relief. But the Cooper's cough lingers, a warning in the silence. Torald's voice, softer now, cuts through. "Don't touch him, Miller. Fever takes friends too." Elias nods, the advice a cold comfort. He thinks of his daughter, her small hands warm against his, and wonders if he'll carry this sickness to her memory. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in grim superstition, believed sharing a sick man's cloth could share the illness away, a desperate lie that spread fever faster. Elias keeps his rag close, not daring to share. The chamber settles, but the coughs don't stop, a grim rhythm alongside the drip, drip, drip. Elias's chest tightens, each breath a gamble in the foul air. He imagines the fever creeping invisible through the straw, the chains, the very stone. Marjorie's hum rises again, stronger now, and Watt's voice joins, a shaky murmur of words Elias doesn't know. It's not prayer, not quite, but a shared sound, a defiance against the sickness's siege. Elias wants to join, to add his voice, but fear seals his lips. Instead, he listens, the sound a faint shield against the dark. A second light joke. If this dungeon's air is medicine, Elias is ready for a refund, preferably in fresh breezes and sunlight. The cold bites harder, Elias's tunic soaked with damp, and he curls tighter, chains heavy on his ankles. The Cooper's cough weakens, a faint wheeze now, and Elias wonders if he's sleeping or slipping away. The thought is a stone in his gut, heavier than hunger. Historical accounts suggest jail fever could kill in days, its victims buried in unmarked pits outside castle walls. Yorkshire's records note fever carts that rolled at dawn, their cargo unnamed. Elias shudders, picturing the Cooper's fate and his own. He presses the rag to his face, breathing through it, hoping it's enough. Torald's silence is loud, his usual rasp absent, and Elias wonders if he's afraid too. A faint scratching starts, not the Cooper, but another, maybe the widow marking the wall. Elias listens, the sound a small rebellion against the fever's shadow. He wants to speak, to ask her name, her story, but the coughs hold him back, each one a reminder of the dungeon's unseen enemy. Instead, he leans back, the walls chill grounding him, and clings to Marjorie's hum, Watt's murmur, the faint pulse of life in the dark. A third light joke. If this place had a health inspector, it'd be shut down faster than Watt's goose chase. Too bad the rats don't file complaints. Elias closes his eyes, the chains a heavy lullaby, and waits, the sickness's silent siege tightening its grip as the dungeon holds its breath. Elias's breath catches, each inhale a gamble in the dungeon's fetid air, where the Cooper's weakening cough still haunts the shadows. The drip, drip, drip pulses on, a cruel heartbeat, but a new sound shatters the quiet. Boots, heavy and deliberate, descending the staircase with a clank of metal far sharper than Gunther's keys. Elias stiffens, chains clinking as he presses against the cold stone, his heart hammering. The air grows taut, the prisoner's murmurs dying as torchlight spills through the archway, harsh and unyielding. This isn't a feeding or a taunt. This is something worse. Gunther's silhouette appears, but he's not alone. Two figures follow, their armour glinting, carrying tools that catch the light with a sinister gleam. The dungeon's true terror, Elias realises, isn't just hunger or fever. It's the moment when questions demand answers, and truth is carved from flesh. Gunther's gravelly voice cuts through, thick with menace. Up, you lot. Time for a chat. His torch sweeps the chamber, its light cruelly bright, revealing gaunt faces and trembling hands. Elias scrambles to his knees, chains dragging, his legs weak from cold and fear. The armoured men, interrogators, not guards, step forward, their faces hidden behind visored helms, their tools clanking in leather bags. One carries a coiled rope, another a blade, its edge catching the torch's glow. Historical records confirm that medieval dungeons like Yorkshire's were often sites of interrogation, where questioning meant torture. Methods like the rack or hot irons used to extract confessions, true or false, for crimes as petty as Elias's or as grave as treason. The interrogators pause, scanning the prisoners, and Elias's stomach twists as their gaze lingers on the burly man who fought for bread. Him, one says, voice muffled but cold, pointing a gloved hand. Gunther grins, scar-twisting, and hauls the man to his feet, chains rattling like a storm. The man struggles, his voice a hoarse plea. "I done nothing." But Gunther's fist silences him, a crack that makes Elias flinch. The others watch, frozen, as the man is dragged through the archway, his chains scraping a grim farewell. Torald's rasp, barely audible, reaches Elias. "Pray it's not you next, Miller." Elias nods, trembling. The walls chill, no match for the fear icing his veins. A light joke. If this is a job interview, Elias is ready to resign. Too bad the dungeon doesn't take notice. The chamber falls silent, save for the Cooper's faint cough and the drip, drip, drip. Elias's mind races, picturing what awaits the burly man, screams, blood, tools that twist and tear. He's heard tales of such things whispered in taverns, but here they're real, as close as the straw beneath him. Marjorie's voice, soft but steady, breaks the quiet. "God keep him," she whispers, her Latin hymn a faint thread. What, the goose thief mutters, "God don't come here." The words sting, but Elias clings to Marjorie's prayer, a fragile shield against the terror. A quirky tidbit. Some interrogators, in grim superstition, marked their tools with crosses, believing divine sanction guided their work. a twisted piety that offered no mercy to their victims. The interrogator's boots echo faintly now, distant but sharp, and Elias strains to hear, muffled voices, a low groan, then silence. His chest tightens, each breath shallow, the air thick with the drained stench and the weight of waiting. He thinks of his mill, the river's hum, but the image cracks under the memory of Gunther's grin. The blades glint. Historians still argue over whether torture was routine or reserved for high crimes. Yorkshire's assize rolls suggest even minor offenders faced questioning, especially if a lord demanded swift justice. Elias's crime, a shorted sack of grain, feels laughably small, but the dungeon doesn't care. It hungers for confessions, not truth. A faint clank above. Keys, maybe, or more tools. Elias flinches, expecting the interrogator's return, but the sound fades, leaving only the cooper's cough, weaker now, and Marjorie's soft hum. Torald shifts, his chains scraping. "They'll come for one of us soon," he rasps. "Always do." Elias's throat tightens. "Why him?" he whispers, meaning the burly man. Torald's pause is heavy. "He fought. They don't like fight." The words land like stones, and Elias vows to stay quiet, to shrink into the dark. But the dungeon, he's learning, doesn't let you hide. Not from fever, not from Gunther, not from the tools that wait beyond the archway. A new sound, a faint scream, distant but raw, from somewhere deeper in the dungeon. Elias's blood runs cold, his hands trembling as he clutches the straw. The scream cuts off, replaced by silence, and the prisoners huddle closer, their chains a grim chorus. Marjorie's hymn falters, then resumes, stronger, as if to drown the echo. What's voice, shaky, joins in. Not Latin, but a mumbled prayer, and Elias feels a spark of defiance in their voices, small but real. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in rare accounts, sang during interrogations, not for courage but to muffle their screams, a desperate act to keep some dignity. Elias wonders if the burly man sings now, or if he's broken already. The air grows heavier, the cold biting deeper, and Elias curls tighter, chains heavy on his ankles. He thinks of his daughter, her laugh, and tries to hold her image, but the scream lingers, a stain on his mind. Torald's voice, softer now, cuts through. "Don't think on it, Miller. Thinking's a trap." Elias nods, unseen, but the advice is hollow. How do you not think of blades, of pain, of a truth you don't have? A second light joke. If this dungeon's a courtroom, its justice system needs a serious overhaul, preferably one that skips the sharp bits. The drip, drip, drip resumes its rhythm, a cruel metronome, and Elias listens, straining for more screams, but none come. The cooper's cough sputters, a faint reminder of the fever's siege, and Elias wonders which is worse, disease's slow creep or the interrogator's swift cruelty. Historical accounts note that torture often yielded false confessions, clogging Yorkshire's courts with lies. Lords cared less for truth than for closure, their dungeons a mill for grinding guilt. Elias's crime, if confessed under pain, could damn him forever, and the thought makes his chest ache, sharper than hunger. A faint scratching starts. Not the widow, but another, near Sir Hugh's corner. Elias tilts his head, listening. Is it a tally, a prayer, a plea? The sound is steady, deliberate, a small rebellion against the terror's grip. He wants to speak, to ask Torald if Sir Hugh's faced the tools, but fear seals his lips. Instead, he leans back, the walls chill grounding him, and clings to Marjorie's hymn, What's Prayer, the faint pulse of life in the dark. A third light joke. If this place had a suggestion box, Elias would propose fewer interrogators and more bread, though the rats might eat the note first. He closes his eyes, the chains a heavy lullaby, and waits, the dungeon's tools glinting in his mind as the dark holds its breath. Elias's heart still races, the echo of that distant scream fading but not gone, its raw edge lingering like a blade in the dark. The drip, drip, drip resumes its cruel pulse, and the cooper's cough, now a faint wheeze, underscores the dungeon's relentless siege. Yet, amidst the fear, a soft sound rises. Marjorie's voice, not her usual hymn but a quieter prayer, murmured in the common tongue. "Lord, give us strength," she whispers, the words weaving through the straw like a thread of light. Elias leans forward, chains clinking, his breath slowing as her voice steadies him. The dungeon strips everything: hope, warmth, freedom, but faith, he's learning, clings like moss to stone, offering solace where iron and fever reign. His fingers trace the shackles cold and unyielding, but Marjorie's prayer warms something deep within, a flicker against the dark. The prayer spreads, Watt's shaky voice joining, then Sir Hugh's reedy hum, a chorus of broken souls. Elias hesitates, his lips dry, but murmurs along, the words unfamiliar yet comforting, like a half-remembered lullaby. Historical records note that religion was a lifeline in medieval dungeons. Yorkshire's prisoners, from peasants to nobles, often turned to prayer, carving crosses or whispering psalms to defy their plight. Elias doesn't know the scriptures, his miller's life too busy for chapels, but here, in this pit, faith feels less about heaven and more about holding on. Marjorie's voice falters, then strengthens, and Elias wonders what keeps her praying. Her weaving hands, now chained, must ache for more than cloth. Torald's rasp cuts through, low and sceptical. "God's got better things to do, Weaver." Marjorie doesn't snap back, just hums softer, her prayer unbroken. Elias shifts, straw jabbing his thighs, and whispers, "Why pray, Torald? Don't it help?" Torald's pause is heavy, his chains scraping. "Helps some, not me. Sheep don't pray, and I'm no better." His voice cracks not with faith but loss, and Elias regrets asking. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in rare accounts, claimed visions in dungeons, saints or angels whispering through the stone, a delirium born of hunger or hope. Elias hasn't seen angels, but Marjorie's voice feels close to divine, a small miracle in the filth. The air grows heavier, the drain stench sharper, and Elias presses his damp rag to his nose, though it's little help. The cooper's cough sputters, weaker still, and Elias's chest tightens. Fever's grip tightens, but prayer pushes back, if only in hearts. Watt's voice rises, bolder now, reciting a child's prayer, the kind taught by village priests. "From evil keep us," he murmurs, and Elias joins, the words stirring memories of his daughter kneeling by their hearth. The dungeon's cold bites deeper, but the prayer's warmth holds it at bay, a fragile shield. Historians still argue over whether faith sustained prisoners or mocked their suffering. Yorkshire's jail records hint at chaplains visiting, but their sermons often served lords, not the damned. A faint clank above, keys, distant but sharp. Elias stiffens, expecting Gunther's boots, but the sound fades, leaving only Marjorie's prayer and the cooper's faint wheeze. Sir Hugh's hum grows stronger, a melody Elias doesn't know, perhaps a knight's hymn from brighter days. The sound binds them, noble and peasant, thief and miller in a moment of defiance. Elias's lips move, his voice a whisper, and he feels less alone, the chains lighter, if only for a breath. A light joke. If this dungeon's a church, it's got the worst pews, stone, straw, and a rat for a choir boy. The thought almost makes him smile, but the cooper's cough cuts through, a grim reminder of their fragility. A new sound, a soft shuffle, near Marjorie's spot. Elias tilts his head, listening. She's moving, her chains dragging as she reaches out, perhaps to Watt or another. "Hold fast," she whispers, not prayer but encouragement, and Elias's heart twists. He wants to reach out too, to feel a hand, a pulse, but his chains hold him fast, the iron a cruel priest. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in desperate faith, crafted relics from straw or stone, tiny crosses to clutch in the dark, a talisman against despair. Elias's fingers find a notch in the wall, a prisoner's old mark, and he presses it, imagining it a cross, a faint act of belief. The prayer falters as boots return, heavier now, Gunther's tread, unmistakable. Torchlight spills through the archway and the prisoners fall silent. Marjorie's voice the last to fade. Gunther's silhouette looms, his scar glinting as he surveys the chamber. "Praying, are we?" he sneers, his voice thick with ale. "Won't help you lot." He steps forward, boots squelching, and Elias shrinks back, chains clinking. Gunther's gaze lingers on Marjorie, and Elias's stomach twists, fearing her prayers drawn his wrath. But the keeper only laughs, a gravelly sound, and tosses a crust into the straw. "Eat your sacrament," he mocks, then turns, his boots fading up the stairs. The dark returns, thicker now, but Marjorie's whisper rises again, unbroken. Elias scrambles for the crust, his chains dragging, but what's quicker, snatching it with a triumphant grunt. "Share it," Marjorie urges, and Wat hesitates, then breaks off a piece, passing it through the straw. Elias's fingers find a crumb, hard and stale, but he eats it, the act of communion of sorts. Torald's silent, his scepticism a heavy presence, but Elias feels the prayer's power, not in miracles, but in this moment, this sharing. A second light joke. If Gunther's the priest, his sermons need work. Less sneering, more bread, please. The crumb's gone, but its warmth lingers, a spark against the cold. The cooper's cough sputters, a faint rattle now, and Elias wonders if he hears the prayers, if they reach him in his fever's haze. Marjorie's voice resumes, softer, a lullaby for the sick, the scared, the lost. Elias joins, his voice stronger now, the words less foreign. He thinks of his wife, her quiet prayers at dawn, and holds her image, a beacon in the dark. Historical accounts suggest faith could forge bonds in dungeons. Yorkshire's prisoners, in rare survivor tales, spoke of chapels in the deep, their prayers a defiance of stone and chain. Elias feels it now, the chamber a crude sanctuary, its congregation bound by suffering and hope. A faint scratching starts near Sir Hugh's corner, steady and deliberate. Elias listens, imagining a cross, a tally, a name carved into the stone, a prayer in silence. He wants to speak, to ask Marjorie how she holds her faith, but Gunther's sneer lingers, a warning. Instead, he leans back, the walls chill, grounding him, and lets the prayer wash over, a tide against the dungeon's despair. A third light joke. If this place had a hymn book, it'd be one page. Misery, set to the tune of chains. Elias closes his eyes, the shackles heavy, the straw damp, but the voices a faint light, holding the dark at bay as he waits for whatever dawn might bring. Elias's fingers clutch the damp rag, its faint moisture a fleeting comfort as Marjorie's prayer fades into the dungeon's heavy silence. The drip, drip, drip echoes on, a relentless reminder of time's cruel indifference. And the cooper's cough, now a barely audible rasp, hangs like a spectre in the dark. The air is thick, not just with the drain's stench or the mould's sour tang, but with a new tension, a sense that something is coming, something worse than Gunther's taunts or the interrogator's tools. Elias shifts, his chains clinking softly, the iron biting his ankles as he presses against the cold stone wall. The dungeon, he's learning, doesn't just break bodies, it bides its time, waiting to shatter spirits with a promise of change, whether salvation or doom. His breath is shallow, each inhale a prayer he doesn't voice, as he listens for the next sound to pierce the dark. A faint clatter above, metal not boots, makes him stiffen. It's not the familiar jangle of Gunther's keys, but something heavier, like a lock being turned or a gate creaking open. The prisoners stir, their chains scraping, a low murmur rising from the straw. Torald's rasp reaches him, sharp with unease. "Quiet, Miller. That's no feeding." Elias nods, unseen, his heart thudding as the sound grows. Boots now, multiple sets, descending the staircase with a purpose that chills his blood. Torchlight spills through the archway, brighter than Gunther's lone flame, casting jagged shadows that dance across the chamber's walls. This isn't a routine visit. It's a reckoning, and Elias feels it in his bones, as sure as the fever stalking the cooper. 3 figures emerge, their silhouettes stark against the torchlight. Gunther leads, his scar glinting, but behind him are 2 men Elias hasn't seen, cloaked, their faces half hidden, one carrying a parchment scroll, the other a staff topped with a carved cross. A cleric and a scribe, Elias guesses, their presence a grim omen. Historical records confirm that such visits were rare in Yorkshire's dungeons. Clerics often came to record confessions or pronounce sentences, their crosses as much a symbol of judgment as mercy. The scribe's quill scratches faintly, a sound that cuts through the drip, 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 and Elias's stomach twists. Are they here for him? For the cooper? For all of them? The dungeon's dark hides answers, but not fear. Gunther's voice booms, thick with mockery. On your knees, scum. The church has words for you. Elias scrambles to obey, chains dragging, his knees grinding into the straw as he bows his head. The prisoners follow, their movements a grim chorus, save for the cooper, whose cough is too weak to stir. The cleric steps forward, his cloak rustling, and raises the staff, its cross catching the light. In nomine patris, he intones, his voice deep and cold, the Latin a blade that slices through the chamber. Elias doesn't understand the words, but their weight presses him lower, as if the stone itself demands submission. A quirky tidbit. Some clerics, in medieval jails, offered absolution before sentences were read. A hollow mercy, as confessions often led straight to the gallows or worse. The scribe unrolls his parchment, the crackle loud in the silence, and begins to read, his voice nasal and precise. By order of Lord Ranulph, the following are called to answer. Elias's breath catches, his name a ghost on the list he fears. The scribe drones on, naming crimes, treason, theft, heresy, but no names yet, only charges that blur in Elias's racing mind. Torald's whisper, barely audible, reaches him. Stay still, Miller. Don't draw eyes. Elias nods, trembling. His chains a heavy anchor as he tries to shrink into the dark. The cleric's staff taps the stone, a slow rhythm, and Elias feels it like a pulse, counting down to something inevitable. The scribe pauses, his quill scratching as he marks the parchment, then speaks a name, Hugh of Wark, Knight. Sir Hugh's corner stirs, a faint groan rising, and Elias's heart sinks. The knight, whose reedy hum had joined Marjorie's prayer, is called first. Gunter lumbers toward him, chains clanking as he hauls the man to his feet. Sir Hugh sways, his voice cracked but defiant. I served the king, he mutters, but Gunter's fist cuts him off, a dull thud that makes Elias wince. The scribe continues, unmoved, naming another. Marjorie Weaver, accused of witchcraft. Elias's chest tightens, Marjorie's prayer still echoing in his mind as Gunter drags her up, her chains scraping a protest. A light joke. If this is a summons, Elias hopes his invitation got lost, though the dungeon's mail service is famously unforgiving. The cleric raises his staff, silencing the chamber, and speaks, his voice a low thunder. You are called to face justice above. Confess, and God may spare your souls. The words are a trap, Elias knows. Confession here means guilt, and guilt means death, whether by rope or fire. Marjorie's voice, soft but steady, rises in Latin, a final hymn, and Elias clings to it, a lifeline in the torchlight's glare. What's whisper, shaky, reaches him. They'll take us all, won't they? Elias doesn't answer, his throat too dry, his mind spinning with fear and defiance. Historians still argue over whether such justice was legal or a lord's whim. Yorkshire's assize roll suggest trials were often formalities, sentences decided before prisoners left the dungeon. Gunter drags Sir Hugh and Marjorie through the archway, their chains a grim duet, and the scribe follows, his parchment rustling. The cleric lingers, his cross glinting, and sweeps the chamber with cold eyes. The rest of you, pray for your sins, he intones, then turns, his cloak sweeping the straw as he ascends. The torchlight fades, plunging the chamber back into darkness, and Elias exhales, trembling, his knees still pressed to the stone. The cooper's cough sputters, a faint reminder of life, but the silence is heavier now, Marjorie's absence a wound. Torald's rasp breaks it, low and bitter. They'll be back, Miller, always are. Elias curls tighter, chains heavy, the straw damp beneath him. He thinks of Marjorie's prayer, Sir Hugh's hum, and feels their loss like a physical ache. Watt's voice, barely audible, murmurs, She didn't do nothing. The words are a child's plea, but they carry truth. Elias knows Marjorie's no witch, just a weaver caught in a widow's curse. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in rare accounts, smuggled messages to kin, pleading innocence. Yorkshire's dungeons saw scratched notes hidden in straw, though few reached the light. Elias wonders if Marjorie's family knows, if his own wife fights for him, but the thought is a blade, sharp and useless. The drip, drip, drip resumes, a cruel metronome, and Elias listens, straining for boots, for screams, but hears only the cooper's faint wheeze and Watt's soft sobs. His fingers find the wall's notch, his crude cross, and he presses it. A silent prayer for Marjorie, for Sir Hugh, for himself. Historical accounts suggest such moments forged resilience. Yorkshire's prisoners in survivor tales spoke of kin in the dark, their shared fear a bond stronger than iron. Elias feels it now. What sobs a thread connecting them, even as the dungeon's jaws tighten. A faint scratching starts near the Cooper's spot, weak but steady. Elias tilts his head, listening. Is it a tally, a name, a plea? The sound is a small defiance, a mark against the dungeon's erase. He wants to speak, to comfort what, but fear holds him back. Gunther's scar, the cleric's cross, loom in his mind. Instead, he leans back, the walls chill, grounding him, and clings to Marjorie's prayer, now a memory, a faint light in the dark. A second light joke. If this dungeon's a courtroom, its judge needs a new gavel. Less fire, more fairness, please. Elias closes his eyes. The chains a heavy lullaby and waits, the dungeon's judgment looming as the dark holds its breath. The dungeon's darkness closes in, swallowing the fading echo of Marjorie's chains as Gunther drags her and Sir Hugh through the archway. Elias's knees ache against the stone, his body still bowed from the cleric's command, but his mind races. Each drip, drip, drip a hammer on his nerves. The Cooper's faint wheeze punctuates the silence, a grim reminder of the fever's grip. But it's the absence of Marjorie's prayer that cuts deepest, her voice alight, now snuffed out. Elias clutches the straw, its dampness seeping through his fingers, and feels the weight of the dungeon's truth. No one leaves unchanged, if they leave at all. His breath is shallow, fear and cold tightening his chest as he waits. The torchlight's glow gone, but its threat lingering like a scar. What soft sob breaks the quiet? A child's grief for Marjorie, for Sir Hugh, for the unknown fate awaiting them above. Elias wants to comfort him, to whisper something brave, but his throat is dry, his own fear a heavy chain. Torald's rasp reaches him, low and grim. Keep your head down, Miller. They'll come for more. Elias nods, unseen, his heart thudding as he imagines the scribe's parchment, his own name scrawled among the damned. Historical records confirm that Yorkshire's dungeons were often preludes to swift justice. Trials, if they happened, were brief, with lords like Ranulph favouring executions to clear cells for new prisoners. Elias's crime, a shorted sack of grain, feels absurdly small, yet the dungeon doesn't discriminate. It grinds all to dust. A faint clank above. Keys, distant but sharp, makes the prisoners stiffen, their chains scraping like a grim chorus. Elias strains to hear, expecting Gunther's boots, but the sound fades, leaving only the Cooper's wheeze and Watt's muffled sobs. The air grows heavier, the drain stench sharper, and Elias presses his rag to his nose, its dampness a frail shield against the dungeon's foulness. He thinks of Marjorie's hymn, her steady voice, and wonders if she sings now, facing the cleric's cross or worse. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in rare accounts, clung to songs during trials, their melodies a final defiance. Yorkshire's jail tales speak of a weaver who sang until the noose silenced her. Elias hopes Marjorie's voice holds wherever she is. The silence stretches, broken only by a faint scratching near the Cooper's spot. Weak, unsteady, like a dying prayer. Elias tilts his head, listening, and imagines the man carving a mark, a name, a plea into the stone. The sound stops, replaced by a low moan, and Elias's heart twists. Is the Cooper slipping away, fever claiming him before the scribe's quill can? Torald's voice, softer now, cuts through. Don't think on him, Miller. Focus on you. Elias nods, but the advice is hollow. How do you not think of death when it breathes beside you? Historians still argue over whether dungeons like this one were designed to kill. Yorkshire's assize rolls suggest neglect, not intent, but the result was the same. Bodies carted out, names forgotten. A new sound, a low murmur, not prayer but voices, rising from the straw like a cautious tide. What sobs quiet, and he whispers, "She was kind." Marjorie. Elias's chest aches, picturing her calloused hands, her hymn in the dark. "Aye," he murmurs, risking a reply, "she was." The murmur spreads, others joining. Sir Hugh's name, Marjorie's, spoken like relics. A baker's gruff voice, from a corner Elias hasn't mapped, mutters, "Knight or weaver, don't matter. They take who they want." The words are bitter, but they bind the prisoners, their shared loss a thread against the dungeon's cold. A light joke. If this place had a guest book, Marjorie's name would glow, though the rats would probably chew the pages. The murmur grows, a fragile defiance, and Elias listens, his chains heavy but his heart lighter, if only a fraction. Watt's voice rises again, shaky but clear. She told me about her loom, said it sang when she worked. Elias smiles, unseen, imagining the hum of wood and thread, a world away from this pit. He wants to share his own story, to speak of his mill's water wheel, but fear holds him back. Gunther's scar, the cleric's staff, loom large. Instead, he leans closer to Torald, whispering, "Will they take us next?" Torald's pause is long, his breath a dry wheeze. Maybe. Depends on Ranulf's mood. The name, Lord Ranulf, lands like a stone. The man whose whim chained Elias here. His miller's life a pawn in a game he'll never see. The air shifts, a faint draught carrying the mould's sour tang, and Elias's stomach churns, the gruel's memory a faint ache. A new cough, not the Cooper's, sputters from another corner, sharp and wet, and Elias's pulse quickens. Is the fever spreading, leaping from straw to straw? He presses his rag tighter, breathing through it, but the cloth feels useless, as thin as hope. Historical accounts note that jail fever could sweep dungeons in days. Yorkshire's records speak of entire cells emptied by disease, their prisoners buried in unmarked pits. Elias shudders, picturing the Cooper's fate and his own, as the cough echoes, a grim warning. A faint shuffle nearby, Watt moving closer, his chains scraping. "Elias," he whispers, voice small. "You think they'll let us go?" Elias's throat tightens, the boy's hope a blade to his heart. He wants to lie, to offer comfort, but Torald's truth holds him back. "I don't know, lad," he murmurs, honest but heavy. What silence is loud, his chains still, and Elias feels the dungeon's cruelty anew, not just in iron or fever, but in stealing a child's faith. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in desperate moments, told tales of escape. Tunnels dug with spoons, guards bribed with smuggled coins, though Yorkshire's jails rarely saw such miracles, their walls too thick, their keepers too cruel. The murmur fades, the prisoners settling, but their voices linger, a faint pulse against the drip, drip, drip. Elias thinks of his daughter, her laugh by the river, and imagines telling her this, not the dungeon, but the people, Watt's hope, Marjorie's hymn. It's a fragile dream, but he guards it. The straw's dampness a reminder of where he is. Torald's voice, barely audible, cuts through. "Don't dream too hard, Miller. It'll break you." Elias nods, but he can't let go. Not yet. A second light joke. If dreaming's a crime here, Elias is guilty. Though he'd take a nap over this nightmare any day. A new sound. A faint creak. Not boots, but wood. Distant and ominous. Elias stiffens, listening. Is it a door? A gallows? A cart for the dead? The sound doesn't repeat, but the tension lingers, the dungeon holding its breath. Watt's voice, softer now, murmurs, "I miss the sun." The words are simple, a child's ache, but they cut Elias deeper than chains. He wants to promise sunlight, to swear they'll see it, but the dungeon's truth is iron. Promises break faster than bones. Historical accounts suggest such moments forged bonds. Yorkshire's prisoners in rare survivor tales spoke of brothers in the pit, their shared dreams a shield against despair. Elias feels it now, Watt's voice a thread tying him to life. A faint scratching starts again, not the Cooper but another, near the baker's corner, steady, deliberate, like a prayer in stone. Elias listens, imagining a mark, a name, a hope carved against the dungeon's erase. He wants to speak, to ask Watt's story, to keep the murmur alive, but Gunther's grin, the scribe's quill, hold him back. Instead, he leans back, the walls chill, grounding him, and clings to Marjorie's memory. Her hymn a faint light in the dark. A third light joke. If this dungeon had a motto, it'd be no refunds, no escape, though Elias would settle for a window and a breeze. He closes his eyes, the chains a heavy lullaby, and waits. The dungeon's judgment looming as the dark holds its secrets. Elias's breath fogs in the dungeon's chill, each exhale a faint ghost in the dark, mingling with the ever-present drip, drip, drip and the cooper's fading wheeze. The baker's scratching, that steady etch of hope or despair, has stopped, leaving a silence that feels heavier than the chains biting Elias's ankles. What's words? "I miss the sun," echo in his mind, a child's plea that cuts deeper than the cold stone at his back. The dungeon's darkness is a living thing, pressing against his chest, but it's the absence of Marjorie and Sir Hugh that gnaws most, their fates unknown, their voices silenced above. Elias clutches the notch in the wall, his crude cross, and imagines it warm with his daughter's touch, a fragile tether to a world beyond this pit. His heart aches, not just for home but for the fragile bonds forged here, now fraying in the face of judgment. A faint rustle stirs the straw, not what but another, perhaps the widow who spoke of curses. Her voice, low and cracked, breaks the quiet. "They'll come for us all," she whispers, her words a prophecy that chills Elias's blood. Thorold's rasp follows, sharp and weary. "Aye, widow, but not yet. Breathe while you can." Elias shifts, chains clinking, and feels the truth in their words. The dungeon is a beast, patient and cruel, its hunger for souls never sated. Historical records confirm this grim cycle. Yorkshire's jails, like this one, were designed to hold, not heal. Their prisoners cycled through trials, gallows, or unmarked graves, their names lost to time's indifference. The air grows colder, the drain's stench sharper, and Elias presses his rag to his nose, its dampness a faint shield against the dungeon's foulness. The cooper's cough sputters, a frail rattle now, and Elias wonders if he's clinging to life or slipping away. The thought is a stone in his gut, heavier than the gruel's memory. A new sound, a low groan, not from the cooper but another corner, where the baker's voice had risen before. "My hands," the man mutters, his words thick with pain. Elias tilts his head, listening, and imagines swollen joints, battered by labour or torture, now useless in the straw. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in desperate moments, rubbed their shackles with spit, believing it eased the iron's bite. A futile ritual, as Yorkshire's jails offered no mercy to flesh or spirit. Watt's voice, small but steady, rises again. "Elias, tell me about your mill." The request catches Elias off guard, a spark of light in the dark. He hesitates, his throat dry, but the boy's need pulls him forward. "It's by the river," he whispers, his voice raw. Water wheel turns, grinds the grain, smells of flour and wood. He pauses, picturing the wheels creak, his daughter's laugh as she chased minnows. Sun hits the water, makes it shine. Watt's breath hitches, a soft sound, and Elias feels the boy's hunger, not for food, but for something brighter than this pit. The murmur spreads, others listening, their chains still as Elias's words weave a fragile picture. Historians note that such stories were lifelines in dungeons. Yorkshire's prisoners shared memories of fields, hearths and rivers, crafting worlds to escape the stone. The baker's voice joins, gruff but soft. "I baked loaves for the market, golden crusts warm to touch." His words are a gift, shared like Marjorie's crust, and Elias's chest aches, imagining the smell of fresh bread, a world away from mouldy scraps. The widow murmurs next, her voice faint. "I grew herbs, mint, sage, kept the flies away." The prisoners listen, their silence a kind of reverence, each story a thread stitching them closer. Elias wants to add more, to speak of his wife's stew, but a faint clank above, keys, boots, cuts him off. The chamber freezes, the stories dying as torchlight flickers, faint but growing. Elias's heart thuds, expecting Gunther, but the tread is lighter, unsteady. The boy, perhaps, or someone new. A figure appears, not Gunther but the scrawny boy from the feeding, his arms laden with a sack, his face pale in the torch's glow. "Bread," he mumbles, tossing it into the straw, his eyes darting as if fearing Gunther's shadow. Elias scrambles, chains dragging, and snatches a hunk, its crust hard but less green than before. He breaks it, passing a piece to Watt, who takes it with trembling hands. The boy hesitates, then kneels near the cooper, offering a crust, but the man's too weak to take it, his cough a faint rattle. The boy flinches, retreating fast, and Elias's heart sinks. The cooper's fate is near, fever claiming what the scribe's quill hasn't. A light joke. If this bread's a feast, Elias is ready for a new chef, though the rats might give a 5-star review. The boy's torch fades, his footsteps swallowed by the dark, and the prisoners eat in silence. The bread's faint warmth a fleeting comfort. Elias chews slowly, Torald's warning about the gruel echoing. Eat slow, or it'll come back up. The baker's voice rises again, softer now. Used to give my scraps to kids like wet. Elias nods, unseen, and passes another piece to the boy, whose fingers brush his, warm and alive. The act is small, but it binds them, a defiance against the dungeon's hunger. Historical accounts suggest such gestures were rare but vital. Yorkshire's prisoners, in survivor tales, spoke of sharing crusts, a quiet rebellion against despair. The cooper's cough stops, a sudden silence that chills Elias more than the cold. He strains to hear, but nothing comes. No wheeze, no moan. The widow's voice, barely audible, murmurs, "He's gone." Elias's throat tightens, the bread turning to ash in his mouth. The cooper's death is a shadow, a warning of what waits, fever, blade, or gallows. Torald's rasp confirms it, low and grim. One less for the scribe. Elias shudders, picturing the fever cart, its wheels creaking at dawn, carrying the cooper to an unmarked pit. A quirky tidbit. Some dungeons saw prisoners mark the walls for the dead, a tally of loss. Yorkshire's jails bore such scratches, silent memorials to the forgotten. The air grows colder, the straw damper, and Elias curls tighter, chains heavy on his ankles. Watt's voice, small but clear, breaks the quiet. Will we die here, Elias? The question is a blade, and Elias wants to lie, to promise sunlight, but the dungeon's truth holds him back. Not today, lad, he whispers, the best he can offer. Watt's silence is heavy, but his hand stays close, a faint warmth. Elias thinks of his daughter, her river games, and imagines telling her this. Not the death, but the bread, the stories. A second light joke. If this dungeon's a bakery, its specialty is misery, though Watt's hope might just be the secret ingredient. A faint scratching starts, not the baker but another, near the widow's corner. Steady, deliberate, a mark for the cooper perhaps. Elias listens, the sound a small defiance against the dungeon's erase. He wants to speak, to ask the widow's name, to keep the stories alive, but the cooper's silence looms, a reminder of what's coming. Instead, he leans back, the walls chill grounding him, and clings to Watt's warmth. The baker's tale, a faint light in the dark. A third light joke. If this place had a tavern, its ale would be sorrow, but Elias would still drink to Watt's son. He closes his eyes, the chains a heavy lullaby, and waits, the dungeon's shadow deepening as the dark holds its secrets. The dungeon's silence is a heavy shroud, broken only by the drip, drip, drip and the faint rustle of straw as Elias shifts, his chains clinking like a mournful bell. The cooper's absence is a void, his cough now a memory, and Elias feels the weight of it, as if the stone itself mourns. Watt's hand, small and warm, still rests near his, a fragile anchor in the dark, but the boy's question, "Will we die here?" lingers, unanswered beyond Elias's weak promise of not today. The widow's scratching, a quiet defiance, has faded, and the baker's groans have stilled, leaving the chamber to its cruel rhythm. Elias's fingers trace the wall's notch, his crude cross, and he clings to it, a silent plea for strength as the dungeon's shadow deepens, its hunger for souls unrelenting. A new sound, a faint hum, not prayer but a melody, rises from Watt's corner, soft and trembling. It's no hymn, just a child's tune, the kind sung in village lanes, and Elias's heart twists, picturing Watt's muddy chase with that stolen goose. The hum spreads, hesitant at first, as the widow's cracked voice joins, then the baker's low drone. Elias listens, his breath slowing, the melody a thread of light in the dark. Historical records note that music, however frail, was a refuge in Yorkshire's dungeons. Prisoners sang to defy despair, their voices weaving bonds stronger than the straw they shared. Elias wants to join, but his throat is tight, fear and grief sealing his lips. Instead he leans closer to Watt, the boy's warmth a small miracle against the cold. Torald's rasp cuts through, low but not unkind. Sing, Miller. It's better than thinking. Elias hesitates, then hums, his voice raw and unsteady, blending with the others. The tune is simple, a shepherd's air, and it carries memories of his mill, the river's hum, his daughter's giggle. The dungeon's weight lifts, just a fraction, as the melody binds them, thief, widow, baker, miller, in a fleeting act of defiance. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in rare accounts, claimed songs drew spirits in dungeons, ghosts of the dead joining the chorus. A chilling fancy. Though Elias feels only the living, their voices a shield against the dark. The hum falters as a distant clank. Keys, boots, echoes above, and the prisoners freeze, the melody dying in their throats. Torchlight flickers, faint but growing, and Elias's heart thuds, expecting Gunther's scar or the cleric's cross. But it's the scrawny boy again, his face paler now, his arms empty save for a single torch. He steps into the chamber, eyes darting, and whispers, "They're coming." Soon. His voice is a blade, sharp with fear, and Elias's stomach twists. Who's coming? The scribe, the interrogators, or something worse? The boy doesn't linger, retreating fast, his torch's glow swallowed by the archway. The prisoners stir, chains scraping, a low murmur rising like a storm's first gust. Historical accounts suggest such warnings were rare but vital. Yorkshire's jail boys, often prisoners themselves, risked beatings to pass word of trials or executions, their whispers a fragile mercy. Watts' hum stops, his hand trembling against Elias's. "What's he mean, Elias?" The boy's voice is small, and Elias wants to shield him, to promise safety. But the dungeon's truth is iron. "I don't know, lad," he murmurs, his voice steady for Watts' sake. Torald's rasp follows, grim and low. "Means trouble, Miller. Keep your wits." Elias nods, unseen, his mind racing. Trials, gallows, fever carts, all loom in the boy's warning. The air grows heavier, the drained stench sharper, and Elias presses his rag to his nose, its dampness a frail comfort. A light joke. If this dungeon's a theatre, its next act needs a rewrite. Less doom, more daylight, please. The murmur grows, the prisoner's voices weaving fears and hopes. The widow's whisper rises, faint but clear. "They took my sister last spring, never saw her again." Elias's chest aches, picturing a face lost to the dungeon's jaws. The baker mutters next, his voice thick with pain. "Heard they burn witches, hope Marjorie's strong." The words are a stone, heavy with truth. Marjorie's fate, accused of witchcraft, likely leads to fire or rope. Elias shudders, her hymn echoing in his mind, and wonders if Sir Hugh's knightly honour spares him or damns him faster. Historians still argue over witchcraft trials. Yorkshire's records show dozens burned or hanged, often on flimsy charges, their deaths a spectacle for lords like Ranulph. A faint cough, not the Cooper's, sputters from the widow's corner, sharp and wet, and Elias's pulse quickens. Is the fever spreading, claiming another? He presses his rag tighter, breathing shallowly, but the air feels poisoned, each inhale a risk. The baker's voice, softer now, murmurs, "Keep singing, lad." Keeps the dark away. Watts' hum resumes, fainter but stubborn, and Elias joins, his voice stronger now, a defiance against the cough, the warning, the dungeon's grip. The melody is a lifeline, tying them to fields and rivers, to lives before chains. A quirky tidbit. Some dungeons saw prisoners carve song lyrics into walls, their words outlasting their bones. Yorkshire's jails bore such marks, faint echoes of hope. A new sound, a heavy creak, not boots but wood, distant and ominous, cuts through the hum. Elias stiffens, listening. Is it a gallows, a cart, a door to judgment? The sound doesn't repeat, but the tension lingers, the prisoner's voices faltering. Watts' hand tightens, his hum fading, and Elias whispers, "Hold fast, lad." The words are Marjorie's, stolen from her prayer, and they steady them both, if only for a breath. Torald's rasp follows, low and urgent. "Listen, Miller, if they call you, don't fight. Lie, if you must." Elias nods, the advice a cold comfort. Lying might save him, but at what cost? Historical accounts note that false confessions clogged Yorkshire's courts, prisoners damning themselves to escape torture, their truths buried with them. The air grows colder, the straw damper, and Elias curls tighter, chains heavy on his ankles. The widow's cough sputters again, weaker now, and Elias wonders if she'll join the Cooper before the scribe returns. He thinks of his daughter, her river games, and imagines telling her this. Not the fear, but the song, What's Courage? It's a fragile dream, but he guards it. The walls chill a reminder of where he is. A second light joke. If this dungeon's a choir, its rehearsals are grim, though Watts' tune deserves an encore. The hum resumes, softer now, a thread against the dark, and Elias clings to it, his voice a faint defiance. A faint scratching starts near the baker's corner. Steady, deliberate, a mark for the Cooper, perhaps, or a plea for the living. Elias listens, the sound a small rebellion against the dungeon's erase. He wants to speak, to ask Watts' dreams, to keep the melody alive, but the boy's warning looms, a shadow over their song. Instead, he leans back, the walls chill grounding him, and clings to Watts' warmth, the widow's voice, a faint light in the dark. A third light joke. If this place had a lantern, it'd burn out fast, but Watts' hum might just keep it lit. Elias closes his eyes. The chains a heavy lullaby and waits, the dungeon's secrets tightening their grip as the dark holds its breath. The dungeon's chill seeps deeper into Elias's bones, the drip, drip, drip a relentless pulse that marks time's cruel march. Watts' faint hum lingers, a fragile echo of hope. But the boy's warmth against Elias's side feels frailer now, as if the dungeon's shadow leeches even that small comfort. The widow's scratching has stopped. Her cough a faint sputter in the dark, and the baker's groans have faded, leaving a silence that presses like a stone on Elias's chest. The Cooper's death, confirmed by the widow's whisper, hangs heavy, a reminder that fever or blade could claim any of them next. Elias's fingers grip the wall's notch, his crude cross, and he imagines his daughter's hand in his, her laughter by the river, a light the dungeon can't touch, though it tries with every breath he takes. A faint clatter above, metal, not keys, breaks the quiet, sharp and unfamiliar. Elias stiffens, chains clinking, his heart thudding as he strains to listen. It's not Gunter's boots or the boy's shuffle, but something heavier, like a cart's wheel or a gate's hinge. The prisoners stir, their chains a grim murmur, and Thorold's rasp reaches him, low and tense. That's no guard, Miller, something's moving. Elias nods, unseen, his mind racing. Fever cart, gallows, or something new. The sound fades, but the tension lingers, the dungeon holding its breath as if waiting for its next victim. Historical records confirm that Yorkshire's jails were serviced by carts at dawn, hauling the dead or condemned to pits or scaffolds, their wheels a grim herald of finality. The air grows thicker, the drained stench sharper, and Elias presses his rag to his nose, its dampness a frail shield against the dungeon's poison. Watts' hum falters, his voice small. "Elias, what's that sound?" The boy's fear is a blade, and Elias wants to soothe it, but the truth is iron. "Don't know, lad," he whispers, his voice steady for Watts' sake. "But we're still here." The words feel hollow, but Watts' hand tightens, a small defiance against the dark. The widow's cough sputters again, weaker now, and Elias's pulse quickens. Is she next, or is the fever biding its time? A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in desperate folklore, believed strange noises signalled rescue, knights or kin breaking through, though Yorkshire's jails rarely saw such miracles, their walls too thick for hope. A low murmur rises, the prisoners sharing whispers of what the clatter might mean. The baker's voice, gruff but faint, mutters, "Could be the cart. Took my brother last winter." Elias's chest aches, picturing the baker's loss, a sibling gone to the dungeon's jaws. The widow's whisper follows, cracked but clear. Or they're building something. Gallows, maybe. The word lands like a stone, and Elias shudders, imagining Marjorie and Sir Hugh facing rope or fire. Historical accounts note that gallows were often erected overnight in Yorkshire's castles, their creak a grim symphony for the condemned. Trials were swift, and mercy rarer still. Watts' hum resumes, softer now, a stubborn thread of light. Elias joins, his voice raw, the melody a shield against the widow's words. The baker hums too, his drone shaky but steady, and the sound weaves them together, a fragile choir in the dark. Elias thinks of his mill, the water wheel's rhythm, and imagines it matching their tune, a world away from this pit. The hum grows, others joining, their chains still as the melody rises. A light joke. If this dungeon's a concert hall, its acoustics are terrible, though Watts' tune might sell out in better days. The thought almost makes Elias smile, but a new sound, a heavy thud like wood on stone, cuts through, silencing the hum. Torchlight spills through the archway, harsh and sudden, and Elias's heart lurches. Gunther's silhouette looms, his scar glinting, but he's not alone. A cloaked figure follows, not the cleric, but a man with a soldier's bearing, his sword sheathed but heavy at his hip. Gunther's voice booms, thick with menace. "Up, you rats! Time's moving!" Elias scrambles to his knees, chains dragging, his legs trembling from cold and fear. The soldier steps forward, his eyes scanning the chamber, cold and unyielding. "Elias Miller," he says, voice flat, and Elias's blood runs cold, his name a sentence in the torch's glare. The widow gasps, Watts' hand tightens, and Torald's rasp is sharp. "Don't fight, Miller. Go quiet." Gunther lumbers toward Elias, chains clanking as he hauls him to his feet. The soldier's gaze is a blade, cutting through Elias's fear, and he stumbles, the iron biting his ankles. "You're wanted above," the soldier says, turning to the archway. Elias's mind races. Trial, torture, or something worse. Historical records suggest that such summons often led to swift judgment. Yorkshire's lords like Ranulph preferred confessions, true or false, to clear their ledgers. Elias's crime, a shorted sack of grain, feels absurdly small, but the dungeon doesn't care. It demands answers, not truth. A quirky tidbit. Some prisoners, in rare accounts, bribed guards for a moment's reprieve. Useless here, as Elias has nothing but his rag and his fear. Watts' voice, small and desperate, breaks through. "Elias, don't go!" The boy's plea is a knife, and Elias wants to stay, to hold Watts' hand, but Gunther's grip is iron. "Quiet, lad," Elias whispers, his voice breaking. "Sing for me." The words are Marjorie's echo, a fragile gift as Gunther drags him toward the archway, the torchlight blinding. The prisoner's hum rises again, faint but defiant, Watts' voice leading, and Elias clings to it, a lifeline as the dark gives way to stone steps. The soldier follows, his sword's clank a grim rhythm, and Elias's heart pounds, each step a march toward judgment. The air changes as they climb, colder but cleaner, the drained stench fading. Elias's legs tremble, weak from days in chains, but Gunther's grip holds him up, bruising his arm. The archway opens to a corridor, its walls slick with damp, and Elias blinks, the torchlight searing after the dungeon's dark. A distant creak. Wood, not stone, echoes, and Elias's stomach twists. Gallows? Cart? He can't tell, but the sound is a warning, as sure as the boys whisper. Historical accounts note that Yorkshire's prisoners often faced justice in castle courtyards, their fates sealed before they saw sunlight. Elias prays for a trial, not a noose. The corridor ends at a heavy door, its iron hinges groaning as Gunther shoves it open. Light spills in, not torchlight but daylight, faint and grey from a narrow window. Elias gasps, the sight a blade of hope and pain, his eyes stinging after days in darkness. The soldier pushes him forward into a stone chamber where a table waits, a scribe at its head, his quill scratching. "Elias Miller," the scribe says, not looking up, "accused of cheating Lord Ranulph. Speak." Elias's throat tightens, the words he needs. Truth, lies, locked inside. A second light joke. If this is a trial, Elias hopes for a better lawyer, though the rats might plead his case for scraps. The hum from below, Watts' melody, is gone, but Elias holds it in his heart, a faint light against the scribe's cold gaze. He thinks of his daughter, her river games, and imagines her singing, not for him, but for Watt, for the widow, for the baker. The dungeon's shadow looms, but the melody lingers, a defiance against the stone. A third light joke. If this place had a jury, it'd be all chains and no mercy, but Elias would sing for a chance at the sun. He stands, chains heavy, the scribe's quill a ticking clock, and waits, the dungeon's secrets trailing him as the door creaks shut.